So in today's session, we are going to look on how we work with Credit Memo in accounts payable, that is Paraco R12 EBS accounts payable. So just like any other invoice, a credit memo is maintained as a type of invoice in Oracle EBS, and we book the credit memo in the invoice workbench, just like any other standard or normal invoice, that is purchase or supply invoice. So under the invoice workbench, I trust that you may be knowing how to navigate to the invoice workbench. This is what we call the invoice workbench. Okay, let's see, it has the name here. So on this, we have different types of invoices that you can create, or types of document you can create. And this type of documents, one of it is the credit memo. So if you come here under the type column and you click on the LOV, that is list of value, okay, you can be able to see they are named as invoice type. So that's why we call them, or we refer to them as invoice type. So apart from the standard invoice, you can define the credit memo invoice. So what happens when we are working with credit memo, the goal of the credit memo is to reduce what we owe to the supplier. So one time maybe have a scenario whereby we have received goods and returned some of the goods because they may never, or they have not met the set conditions for the purpose of how we ordered them. So in that case, you may find we have returned the goods, and once we return the goods, the supplier will issue a credit memo saying that we need to reduce our invoice that they had probably invoiced before with the amount in the credit memo. So what happens? You have to come and book the credit memo. Okay, you have to start with the credit standard invoice, then you go to the credit memo. So the standard invoice, it's an assumption that you received it with the condition that all goods are okay, or serviceware was okay, and all you need now is to pay the whole invoice. But once you receive goods and probably the invoice, you realize that there are some goods you have returned, or there are some goods that you never received. So you request for a credit memo from the supplier. So you'll go ahead and book the standard invoice, the first invoice that you receive, with the amount that you received with. For instance, let's say we have as our first standard invoice. We'll use the supplier, the trading partner. Let's say test 1, 2, 3. Okay, go ahead and provide the invoice date, assuming the periods are open. Okay. Then invoice number is test CM, is credit memo 1. Okay. Then amount you can say is check whether there is any other mandatory field that you need to provide. That's all. Country. Provide them 200. Scroll right to see whether there is any other mandatory field you need to. So there isn't, go to distribution. select in a save. Country general. See, our invoice data is 200. We have not paid anything. So we go ahead and validate our invoice. Status is now validated. Okay, we validate. See, okay. And remember, this is the credit memo for payables, that is for supplier purchases or for purchase invoice, call it. So the status of validation has completed successfully. You can go and approve, because we don't have for the demo purposes, we don't need to initiate a workflow. We just first approve. Approval is manually. So invoice is ready to be paid because we have just approved. But now, before we pay, we receive the credit note. So this credit note is coming to reduce this balance. So what we are supposed to do is to go ahead and book our credit memo or invoice in the system. And now, when you're booking, you will not select the type of document or invoice as standard. You'll go and select credit memo and say okay. Then the supplier is the same. See, once you select the credit memo, the system will give you a note saying that payables default the payment terms for the supplier site to the invoice verify the payment terms for credit or debit memos. You may want to change the payment terms to immediate for credit and debits. So that's just a note for payment terms with the same. Then it is the same with the same demo purposes. Then amount. So under amount, provide a negative amount. Let's say negative. Notice. Change. The last we do just like the same. Provide the lines. Line. Distribution. Here again is negative 15. Remember, credit memo is coming to reduce. It's not adding the supplier balance. So it should be negative. Then after saving the distribution window, we come and validate our invoice. And we can, for example, the same. You can do both at the same time. System's taking some time, I think, because because we have initiated two actions, but you can see it has completed successfully for status. It's validated and approval is manually approved. So we can go ahead and pay our invoices. So remember, you can't pay a negative invoice. And also, we have a standard invoice which has a positive amount. So what we do, how the system operates is that in the time of payment, that's when you select these two invoices, and the standard invoices having a positive amount, of course bigger than the credit memo, it will be adjusted by the credit memo balance. Remember, both are from one same supplier. So what happens is that we navigate to the payment table or payment distribution, payment workbench. We quit or we close this invoice workbench. So, and we go to payments. Okay. It's the navigation and the payment window. Here, we provide the details of the trading partner. This is the supplier detail. Some information, payment date. You can select. They're not restricted to any here. Or it has to be a USD bank. Okay. We are demoing the process of adjusting the invoice, the standard invoice. Once you provide the header level, that is the supplier details. Now, underline, that's where you provide the invoice details. So what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to come under enter or adjust invoices. So remember, we are adjusting the standard invoices. It seems like there's a field we have skipped here. So here, once you click on enter stroke adjust invoices, there is a window that's open. This window gives you an option to select the invoices under this supplier. So if you click on LOV, list of value here under invoice number, then try to query the invoices that are available. You can see our both or two invoices here. The first one of 200 amount and the second one of -50. So we are supposed to select both of them. Select the first one. Okay. So you can see once you select, it's giving you payment amount. It's amount has not been paid, but the total is 200. So we go to the next line and we select the next invoice, which is our credit memo. Okay. See, the moment you select the credit memo, the total amount reduced with from 200 to 150, and you be able to see the adjustments of your invoice has been done. So you go ahead and save. Once you save, you can see now the payment has been done. You have done the payment of 150, and this because you have adjusted your initial standard invoice with the credit memo. Close this. Once you close this, you can see under the line level of the payment workbench that we have our first invoice of 200, and there is the second invoice. Of course, this is the credit memo, and you can view invoice overview, and also you can do the payment overview here. Okay. This is how the payment has been done. You can see all the information here. Amount of payment is 150. So there is two lines or two invoices here. One is positive, the other one is negative. The positive one is the standard invoice, and the negative one is the credit invoice. And that's how we do the adjustment, or we create the credit memo and use it to adjust the standard invoice. Thank you very much for watching, and kindly subscribe and like my video.